Gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Brendan Miller, and I'm counsel to Freedom Corp, which represents the protesters that were in Ottawa in January and February of 2022. So I just want to begin first by bringing up an email, and it's government document ssm.can.00004353_rel.0001. And if we could scroll down to the last page, it's in reverse order, okay? And up, I apologize, up to the beginning where the email starts. Okay, so this is an email from Ron Renas. Are you familiar that he's the GM of the Peace Bridge? He's the general manager of the Peace Bridge.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other individual who the email is sent to is Vance Badway, and I take it you understand that that's Vance Badway is the Member of Parliament for Niagara Centre?
Yes.
And are you familiar with Tim Clutterbuck? He, I understand, is the recently retired president of ASW Steel. Are you familiar with him?
I don't think I know this person.
Okay. So I want to go through this email with you briefly. And in it is some information about not the blockades, but as of January 27th, the GM of the Peace Bridge advises the yesterday border delays were 70 to 75 minutes entering Canada, and trucks were queued across the Peace Bridge and miles up the I-190 in Buffalo. Truck processing times at Canada Customs have increased from 2 minutes to 3 minutes per truck. While some truckers are leaving the industry because of the vaccination requirements, what is not being talked about is drivers quitting because of border delays that impinge on their hours of service requirements, onerous ArriveCAN, and PHAC requirements in tech. If they are not quitting the industry, they are getting out of long-haul cross-border business and switching to only domestic routes. And the U.S. Bureau of Labor reports just released states that the long-haul trucking transportation costs in the U.S. have increased 25%. Do you agree with that statement as of January 22nd, 2022?
Which statement?
The one I just read to you.
Sorry, there's 6 statements here. Which one are you referring to?
Well, we can go through each one if you want. Which one, actually, I'll do it this way. Which of these each statements don't you agree with?
I have a hard time agreeing or disagreeing simply because there's a few stats on a very specific moment and a very specific crossing on a very specific day. So I don't track that in my head, so I couldn't agree or disagree with it.
Okay, but you have no reason to say that this email is not correct.
When you say the email, this is an email I've never seen, and I've only read a quarter of it, so I have a hard time coming up with a proper judgment of this email.
Okay, so you haven't seen this email before? Today?
No.
Okay.
But it's to a number of people, like I'm not on the chain, right?
Okay. And it states there under the link, if we can scroll down, it says, steps need to be taken immediately to reduce the processing time to pre-pandemic levels, rethinking the necessity of asking multiple health-related questions as they are not being answered honestly anyways, and adding a field of a driver's fast card to indicate vaccination status are a couple of suggestions. Was that addition to a fast card, was it ever implemented?
So this would be a question that you would need to put to CBSA because it has to do with the details of the operations of a border point, which is their responsibility.
Okay. And if we can scroll down where it discusses ArriveCAN, and we'll just hop right to the points there, beginning as traffic returns. So there, the GM of the Peace Bridge says, as traffic returns to normal, the longer processing times associated with ArriveCAN and travelers not filing or not filling or improperly filling will result in border gridlock. Did that happen?
The characterization of border gridlock at this time is not consistent with my memory or our analysis of the transportation trends.
Okay. And it says there too, ArriveCan is not a binational program like Nexus and FAST and is unknown to the U.S., meaning many American visitors will arrive at the border unprepared. Is that true?
I think it is certainly true that ArriveCan is not a binational program. It's a national program. It's a tool of CBSA, so it's a national program. And in fact, actually, ArriveCan is not a program. ArriveCan is a border facilitation tool.
What about the statement there that they state that these mandates essentially will adversely impact travelers, particularly the elderly who do not have smartphones? Would you agree with that?
Sorry,
Sorry, I might have skipped
Can you
one.
just point out, because I'm
Oh, yeah, so will adversely...
you have to give me a break because this is a document I've never seen before.
Right, okay.
So which point?
So where it says will adversely impact travelers, particularly the elderly who do not have smartphones.
And that point relates to what?
The essentially vaccine mandates and, as I understand it from reading it, the essentially administrative process now put in place by the federal government in trying to cross the border.
My general impression of vaccine mandates is vaccinations protect the elderly.
Right, but would you agree that it adversely impacted travelers, particularly the elderly who do not have smartphones? Can you agree with that statement?
I can't agree or disagree because I don't really get the context in which it's sort of asserted.
Okay. Would you agree that the experience with the border from the general manager, as he states, is that requirements that impose additional steps, more documentation, providing more information create border delays, and as a result, border avoidance, so avoiding going across the border? Can you agree with that?
Well, I would agree they're his statements, but there's some generalities here that I have a hard time sort of agreeing with or disagreeing with because of the context is unclear to me.
Okay, and so if we can scroll up then to page number, the one directly before the email, because these are in reverse. Okay, and so in this email, I take it you know who these folks are. It's Mr. Badaway forwards the email to the following people, and that's to Minister Mendocino, the Minister of Public Safety. You know who he is?
Yes, I do.
And he also forwards it to Minister Algara, the Minister of Transport.
I know Minister Algabra well.
Right, and he's the minister that you report to.
Yes.
Right. And he didn't pass this on to you?
To my memory and knowledge, he did not pass this on to me.
Right, but you know, as the Deputy Minister of Transport, as the highest, essentially, civil servant within that ministry, isn't this sort of information something important that you should know?
I think you have to understand the context. Transport Canada, the Minister of Transport gets a massive amount of correspondence. I get a massive amount of correspondence on something like this, on an exchange between an MP and the minister. I may or may not see it depending upon the nature and the context. So it's neither surprising nor it wouldn't be surprising for me to get it, and it wouldn't be surprising for me not to get it. And this one, I do not recall this being forwarded to me.
Okay. Can you agree that having this forwarded to you would have been of assistance in carrying out your duties as the Minister of Transport?
No.
All right. So in your evidence earlier today, you talked about the economic impact of the protests at the border. Is that right?
Not of the protests at the border, of the blockage of the transportation of commercial goods.
Right, and all of that evidence, can you agree with me that most of it was hypothetical and that you haven't done an ex post facto analysis?
It wasn't hypothetical because the blockade was an actual thing.
Well, I understand that, but...
And the concerns, the impact was an actual impact, and the distress and the adverse sort of impact on assessing Canada as a place to invest in sort of auto production was an actual impact. So they were actual impacts, not hypothetical ones.
Right, but you can agree that those things I just showed you from the GM of the Peace Bridge, those would also impact the issue with respect to being able to get across the border in a timely manner. People were quitting trucking because of delays. So that's an adverse impact, is it not?
The issues that list of issues you raised were ones that we were monitoring closely with our colleagues at CBSA and other departments. And in fact, we were tracking over the course of, we were tracking over the course of January the trends in truck traffic across the border.
Okay.
Things like sort of congestion and gridlock. I don't think we until the border blockades caused by the Freedom Convoy, I don't think we were observing gridlock.
Right.
What we did see was actually that the trucks were flowing at about the rate you would expect given this time of year.
Okay.
So we analyzed it.
I understand.
And our conclusion was different
I thank you for your answer.
Suggesting.
But you're familiar with the government agency Statistics Canada or StatsCan, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And StatsCan is the National Statistics Office. It's the agency that ensures Canadians have key information with respect to the economy. You understand that?
Yes.
And StatsCan comes under the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Industry, you're aware?
Yes.
And it's accountable to Parliament through that minister, who's currently Minister Champagne, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If I could please bring up POE.HRF 0000009. So this document is a report done by StatsCan on Canadian international trade, merchandise trade, February 2020. And the key point that I want to take you to is, I've highlighted it. If we could roll down, please, to, I think it's page 4. Oh, my apologies. I will just get the right page for you. It is on PDF page 8. My apologies. Okay, and so there they did a summary of their findings, and it says blockades at border crossings, and I'll just read that to you, and then I'll put the question to you. So in late January and February 2022, some border crossings between Canada and the United States blocked by protesters, preventing the normal flow of goods between the two countries. According to Statistics Canada data, when combined, Canada's highway border crossings at the Ambassador Bridge, Coutts, Emerson, and the Pacific Highway represent more than 1/3 of Canada's trade activity by road. Road transport accounts for more than half of Canada's trade with the United States. In customs basis figures for February, trade activity by road transport at these border crossings fell 8.8% compared with February 2021, with the Ambassador Bridge and Coutts crossing postings the largest decline. However, increased trade activity was observed at other crossings near the ones that were blocked, partly offsetting the decline in traffic. Overall, the blocked border crossings appear to have little impact on the aggregated values of Canadian imports and exports in February. Do you agree with that statement?
I think to provide the best possible answer, if you permit me, I'll defer to the Chief Economist of Transport Canada, who is familiar with Statistics Canada's reporting more so than I am.
Could you repeat your question, please?
The statement I just gave from Statistics Canada, do you agree with it?
Well, I think this is based on monthly data that they're providing, yes.
Yes, okay. So you agree with it?
We agree with the statement where they were saying that there were a decline in terms of their data on the trade. And at the same time that they have seen some realignment of the traffic.
Right. And so have you seen this document before today?
I have seen the document before.
All right. And when did you see it?
I don't remember exactly the date. Well, it's clearly probably the day of they produced the document or the following day.
Okay. So I just got this document today and we uploaded it to the system. Why wasn't this document provided when you produced your production in this matter? I'm just curious.
Well, there's always a lag in terms of I don't know the date. If you can look at the date of the publication of this document.
April of 2022.
Well, that's the point. So, our estimate was done in early February with the information that we had at that time.
Okay.
And as I was mentioning this morning, we were monitoring the situation on a daily basis.
Okay.
This is not an economic impact assessment.
Thank you.
This is just a review
Understood.
of the monthly trade data pattern.
I only have so much time, so
Yeah.
I'm going to try to move on. My last question is to do with ts.can.001 00000002 _rel 0001. So this is for you, Deputy Minister. So this document was uploaded by the Department of Justice just today, and I happened to just see it. What this is essentially a decision chart on whether or not to decide if there is what's referred to as a Section 2 CSIS Act threat. And I understand you're not an expert in this area, and I'm not going to put anything in here to you per se, but have you seen this document before other than today?
I think I may have seen this document in the course of my work, but I don't have any familiarity with it, and I have not done a detailed review of it.
Right. Can you remember, because you were at the IRG meetings and you dealt with this matter, was this document provided to members of the IRG? Do you know?
I think it was definitely not provided by Transport Canada, and whether it was provided by somebody else, CSIS, for example, would be a question best put to CSIS.
Right. So you don't recall seeing this during the IRG meetings?
Do I recall seeing this document during an IRG meeting? I don't think no, I do not recall seeing it.
Thank you. And you can see there, and I don't want to put this to you, you're familiar in public administration and governance generally and deciding. Are you familiar with the OODA loop?
Sorry, can you say that again?
The OODA loop process, are you familiar with it?
The OODA loop, it sounds like an acronym for something.
Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. You've heard of that before?
I've heard, yes, I've heard of that and many variations for analytical processes.
Right. Well, you'll see in here it says identify, assess, decide, act. So it's essentially the OODA loop. And on the second part, it actually outlines what you have to do before you can move to the third. And it says means and affect societal change. In order to do a Section 2 CSIS threat, it has to be a finding, according to CSIS or this document, willingness to kill or inspires others to kill, right? I take it during your IRG meetings, you didn't hear any evidence of the protesters in Ottawa with any specific persons saying that they were willing to kill or inspiring others to kill, did you?
I can't answer that because there was extensive deliberations in the IRG meeting protected by cabinet confidence.
Right. Thank you.